Welcome to Kettlebell Corner, where strength meets theory, where we do a deeper dive into all things kettlebells. I'm Jeremiah Waylon. That's Roger Parks. And it's Os Aponte from Iron Core Way. What's up, guys? I got to ask you something. What do you really need to be a kettlebell coach? Do I just need to do some push-ups near a kettlebell, maybe some reverse lunges? Perhaps I can swing it, and now I can teach everybody how to do it? Or do I really have to go get that certification? Or is even the certification enough? These are just some of the things I have, but what do you need to be a kettlebell coach? Oz, let's start with you today.
Okay. Hi, fellas.
Hey there.
I think that if you really want to coach people and you're the kind of coach that is empathetic and you put in the time and you're working hard, there's no negative for you wanting to learn a little bit and share it with someone in whatever capacity that may be. I want to start off with that before I give you my greater vision about this. Because most coaches are really good at what they do. They're in it because they want to help others, okay? And they do have some kind of skill in terms of doing the physical skills that they can transfer to others. And I think, early on, I'm going to say, one of the greatest things that you can have as a coach is that if you can demonstrate well enough so that your students can model what you do, that's a great asset. And so if you lack the resources to go get some expensive, fancy certification, which we're going to get to, then I encourage you to go ahead and learn however you can. There are many resources out there. However, I believe that if you're serious about your development and if you're serious about your profession, then you should absolutely prepare to eventually go to a course in which you're going to get the finest education that you possibly can in terms of how to use the tool, implement it, and keep it in your arsenal for a very long time.
That makes sense. And, kettlebells has many different styles. We're not going to get into the styles. We'll primarily speak to the hard style aspect of it, but there are certifications for the sports style and various others, or general fitness style kettlebell certifications are out there where you can even get a pocket card and these sort of things. And I do agree with you, Ozik. You can take the resources and learn from them. I think I can speak to my own journey. Is I started with simply just looking online and finding a get up and a swing and being like, oh, this is how I'm going to do it, and buy a kettlebell from Ross Dress for Less, 15 pounds filled with sand. I wish I still had it. But eventually you have to find the right way, and some guidance doesn't hurt. We happen to have a pretty good guide here on the podcast with us, Roger. And I'm curious, Oz shared his opening to why it's important to be a kettlebell coach. What say you?
Why it's important, or what's important to be a kettlebell coach?
Yeah, just pick a winner.
Okay. I'm a fan of two things. If you want to be good at a thing, expertise. I've been having these conversations lately, especially with clients, because I like to antagonize them, especially politically. And this is a hot topic of conversation right now. The idea of what qualifies a human being to be in a position. And a lot of it boils down to, in my opinion, theory, having the proper theory, and having relevant experience. Relevant experience is not always as straightforward as it seems, but there should be some experiential element of being qualified to teach others. And so, I guess I'll elaborate a little bit when we get into this. Let's get into this idea of certification. So you have a certification, and our certifications, we have others, but the primary certifications we identify with our pronouns are SFG. So we're
nice.
we're Strong First certified, and there's a particular advantage that I think Strong First certification has, and it sometimes gets knocked. We were talking a bit earlier about the snatch test, that a lot of people think that there really is no reason, 100 reps in 5 minutes. There's no reason to do that. It doesn't make you a better coach. And I don't agree with that. It doesn't necessarily make you a better coach, but when you work to achieve this really unnatural, uncomfortable feat of strength, there is an inordinate amount of problem solving that you have to do to be able to just get there. That doesn't mean that some people aren't just natural, they're just animals and they have the raw physicality to do it. I have seen that. I did see someone pass the snatch tests, and I hope he's not teaching kettlebells. But most people have to go through this process, and
it was Jeremiah, wasn't it?
Well, I didn't want to call him out, but this idea of problem solving gives you experience as a coach. So you go in with some theory, and you go into the weekend, and you go in with some experience already, and then it gets deeper. So this certification, I think, gives you both of those things. Now, if you can get them in another way, that's fantastic. The most important things I've learned about kettlebell training for me, my particular style, both of as a practitioner, as a coach, have come on my own. They've come independent of the certification. However, if I wasn't at the certification, if I didn't go and have the ability to evaluate ideas and to see what worked and what didn't, then I wouldn't have been privy to the different gaps that may come up. I wouldn't have been aware of where maybe I need more information. So that experience was really valuable for me. Do I think you need a certification? Not necessarily, but you need a substantial amount of theory. You need a substantial amount of experience. And the last thing that I'll say about this for now is that you don't just need theory and you don't just need experience. You need to be able to help people experience theory. You need to find a way as a coach to get them to feel the sensations that you need. And until you have really dug deeply into those two elements of coaching, you're not going to be good at it. You're going to be a demonstrator, or you're going to be a manual reader. You're going to be somebody who says, a kettlebell swing is a hip hinge, and like that's all horseshit. What I need to do is to dig into, somebody and figure out where their physical capacity is, what they can do, what they understand, their frame of reference, and get them to feel the things I need them to feel to get a swing. Because I don't teach the same way every time, because I don't have the same person every time. So for me, those are the two things that one should be really, really deeply familiar with if they're going to call themselves coaches.
Well, I guess that answered my question. Just kidding. It was well done, Roger. Thank you.
I really like what he said. I really like that idea that in doing so, you're going to come about an incredible amount of problem solving that is really helpful for a developing coach. Okay, so just to like stay on a very defined path here. It's okay for you to do something early on, right? If you don't have the resources, maybe you don't have enough time in the industry to have had, the ability to go 3 days somewhere, maybe even 4 or 5, depending if you have to travel and spend a lot of money and do that. And the train that takes up to that. I love that idea, And another thing that you will find in that is that it's going to teach you some humility as a coach, because it is incredibly hard. That's why people don't want to do it. And, when you find that restraint for yourself, and that humility that, wow, like this is really tough, it might inform you when you start to program for your clients, or in the session, if you're the kind of person that walks in and just makes it on the spot, like, oh, we're going to do this today. That doing 100 things every session is probably not a great idea. Doing 100 snatches in every session is probably not a great idea, especially if you don't know how to instruct it well, especially if you're a beginner, especially if your client is a beginner. So now you have a situation where it can really get out of hand. Is it okay to dab your foot in there? Like, be like, hey, like, I'm trying things out and be really conservative. Absolutely, yes. But be conservative. Don't go crazy. And I think that the value of the test is in learning not just the toolbox that Roger alluded to, in that you're going to have to problem solve a lot. And so in the certification, you are going to learn that. In the process of getting there with the snatch test, you're going to learn that. But in addition to that, it's that disposition as a coach that you're a little bit kinder and you don't kill people on your first session.
Yeah. And I will say to that, some of the experience that you get is things that you can have, an empathy towards a person that might be, if you're a coach, I've coached several people to strong first certifications, and you know it's going to be hard, so you know what to expect. You have that wisdom of the weekend and like that process that you're going to have to go through, these stepping stones that you're going to hit along the way, and you understand like, hey, with this experience that I've had, I've noticed that when I'm doing higher volume stuff, you need to hold your hands a certain way. You really got to dig into these certain root terms where we like to say, you know, got to really drive your legs and generate the force from the floor. And that will carry over, especially something to latch onto when things get tough. But these things only come from that experience of going through that sort of thing. Or like Roger said, you put the miles in. You're not going to know what the snatch test feels like unless you do the snatch test. And could you do a certification? And there are certifications out there without a physical component where you have to perform a certain thing and still be a decent kettlebell coach? Sure. But when you're coaching somebody, it's more than just, here's your exercise prescription. Because that's training, or that's just like a workout. And I think, Roger, we've mentioned this before, you can slap anything that you want to do in AI and it can prescript you a set of exercises and reps to do. But is that going to be the thing that gets the person in front of you or the person that you're coaching via online over the hump? Or are you going to be able to say, when they come to you with your problems, oh, I've seen this before because I've learned from somebody like Oz, or I've done it myself, or I've learned from Roger that like, hey, this is how they approach it and this could fix your situation. That experience in those certifications is valuable in that regard. And fortunately, I've had the opportunity to be an assistant in one of these certifications, which was a whole different experience to it all. And that's actually where I met Oz for the first time. And you know, that's a whole different look, because now I'm not there as a coach or as a kettlebell practitioner trying to become a coach. I'm there a coach trying to see how these mass groups of people are coached to this actual position, even though I've one-on-one this sort of thing. And then that information, like Roger's point, is you get this information, you get this theory, you get to learn from others, and you get to take and get that understanding. Yeah. So that's pretty good.
Yes,
well, we're starting to move into the territory though of what makes a coach versus what makes a good coach.
Oh,
and
okay.
Certifications. Your certification is your white belt. It's your entrance into the dojo. It does not. If you have a kettlebell certification, cool, go out there and get some reps in and teach some people. But if you think that you were done, then you were not a good coach. And that's a full stop. If you think that, oh, I got my little certificate and I'm a manual I can read and I know all that it is that you know I need to know, you're wrong and you're silly, and I don't want to be your friend.
Thank God.
Yeah, to your point, Roger. You know, I've seen many people, because I've now taught at least one SFG course, like the basic Strong First Level 1 kettlebell certification, in a year for the last 4 years, maybe 5. Right? Since you and I met, right?
Yeah.
And you hear people that are coming back through. They're cycling back through because they need to recertify or something like that. Or they're coming back to assist and they say something to the effect of, man, you always pick something up. You always learn something new in these things, right? And there's so much knowledge packed into those 3 days. And that's the real beauty of it, is that if you're going and seeing a different instructor, a different master instructor that's like running the course, you're going to get a different perspective. We have some fundamental principles that we follow because and it's not just that we like to think of ourselves as a system. We are a system, and it's very effective. But every time you see it through somebody else's eyes and their experience and their limitations and the things that led, you know, and here's the thing, like, not everyone certified with the same standards. There were different tests at different times, and we had to prepare for those tests differently. For example, when I prepared for my snatch test, it was only 50. People are like, wow, I wish I could do 50, but could you do it in a row? Like, right? Because I couldn't put the bell down and you had only one hand switch. So there are some challenges inherent there as well, right? And I had to prepare for that. And then eventually I had to prepare for the final, the form that it has now, which is the 5-minute snatch test. And you got to go, like you said, Roger, a whole new set of problems. It's a whole new set of like tools that you're going to have to employ and deploy to fix that problem. And it's in those experiences that you're going to find so much value over time. And again, I want to reiterate, I don't want you to think that I don't think that you should train with kettlebells if you don't have the resources to do it. However, on a long enough timeline, you should plan and try to get the education that is going to make you a better coach and help you serve your people better.
or at least get in front of a group of people, whether it be, obviously you want to train people, but one of the reasons why, Oz is on with us now is we set up time to chat about these things regularly. And he's a very experienced coach, but he's also very open-minded that I can openly disagree with him, and we explore these ideas. You can find a network of people, you can find other coaches and chat with them. You'd be surprised. A lot of people are very approachable. So you can get your reps in and you can have the conversations with people, whether you get the certification or not, but you need to get in the mix. And you need ideas to start bouncing off of other people. Yeah. So, maybe you've got a cue that works. Maybe someone else has a cue that works. You can talk about these different things, different ways to conceptualize the foundational principles and really get into, at the end of the day. And I think that is something that you need to understand as a coach is what is the difference between demonstrating an exercise and then demonstrating a principle. One of the things that, I've told this story before, but one of the things that Jeremiah and I struggled with when we were learning is we were going on YouTube and we were getting these instructional videos from people, and we were trying to figure out the snatch. And one common thing was, a snatch is a swing that ends overhead. Okay. Well, no, it's not. So if you hear that, just disregard
that. Turns out, spoiler alert.
It's bad advice. I understand where it came from, and it may have been a necessary evolution at one point, but for that to exist independently on the internet is not good. So we had to break all of that. We had to break all of that down and then understand that we were being taught an exercise. We weren't being taught a principle, and a coach needs to understand principles, needs to understand, wait a second, a kettlebell swing isn't the fast deadlift. It's a different lift with a different set of objectives, and this is the way it needs to go. So that way we can deal with different contexts. We can deal with different body types. We can deal with different training goals and say, this is your swing here. And it doesn't need to look like my swing or her swing or his swing. It's a different animal entirely, but you can only do that once you've distilled all of the stuff into principles. And that generally takes a good understanding of theory and some good experience. So if you can get those two things, I'm good. As far as what makes a coach, what makes a good coach. I mean, those are some other things that we may want to think about. I mean, you need to know some anatomy. You need to know some physiology. In my opinion, you need to know some physics. What else? I mean, what else do we have other than just going to attend the certification? What about further study?
Yeah, I think, like you said, that certification is just the entryway. So, are you compelled enough to dig deeper and find more information? Hell, even write a book about some things. Put your thoughts out there. Both these guys are published authors. Or, if you don't seek the knowledge, then you're I don't know. I don't want to disparage personal trainers, but it could be the difference between being a personal trainer or being a coach. I feel like a coach will seek deeper knowledge. A coach will look for answers that can help a broader range of people. And exactly to your point, Roger, the principle. And that was something I learned from you, where it's, if you have principles, then you can work with any person and adapt to what they've got going on, opposed to, well, this is what the standard is. Because I think one of the big knocks on certifications, and I can only speak for the one I did and have currently hold, is that, it's very dogmatic. Well, it's only very dogmatic if you don't find yourself that intrinsic motivation to go beyond said manual. It's making these interpretations for yourself. Okay, I've taken that, and we've been at certifications together, all three of us. Roger and I have been to several together, and he's flat out said, like, that doesn't work for me, because he's got his principles on, like, his movement and how movement should be, and being put into positions that don't work just doesn't work. So you have to escape outside the manual for that sort of thing. But you only know that if you're willing to learn more or take a different approach. I mean, my God, Roger, I can remember all the way back in our corporate gym training days, you had me learn from some other bald guy about physical therapy type things. What the hell was that guy's name?
Evan
Osar. Yeah, Evan Osar. And I read this guy's book, and I'm like, why am I even doing this? But that was the moment where I sort of understood the difference between being just a trainer that shows up and is like, well, this is this periodization and this is super compensation and this is what my certification told me, to, oh, there's a lot to this. There's a lot to anatomy. There's a lot of fine tuning things, which, if you don't seek, you're not going to be there. And also to your point, Oz, yeah, it does cost money to do these sort of things. It's not always free. Sometimes it costs a little, sometimes it costs a lot, but you have to be able to determine what's going to be the biggest bang for your buck, if you will, if that's a stipulation. And if you're a coach, you take that very seriously. And a lot of times people will just say, I'm a coach because they've told a couple people, that this is a good diet for you or something like that. And it's not reality.
No, I want to get back to what Roger was talking about, and in terms of development, right? Like, let's say you're starting out, you don't have the resources, but you're eager, you want to learn. We're not here to hold you back. We want to encourage you. You should learn. I love kettlebells. I love fitness. I want you to learn about kettlebells. I want you to learn about fitness. So let's make that clear. Second, even just being around the right people, even if you just have a buddy that maybe knows a little more than you do, maybe that can be a resource for you until something better comes along, right? To save a little money or whatever. And then you were talking about how these phrases come and go. And this is why I don't like them at the time or later. I tend to like, oh God, let's not say that because I'm pretty sure we're going to have to come back and retract that statement, right? But if you do enter the system, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be entering into a community. And if you stick around, right, like Jeremiah and I met at a certification. And so that's part of the community, right? That's why I'm here today, because we met at that moment. Otherwise, we're not here, right? So you're going to be around all this knowledge all the time. Roger and I have conversations on the phone all the time about things that we agree on and things that we disagree on. But that's part of being a professional, okay? And we're talking about coaches and their development and how they should go about it. Be open-minded. One of my favorite coaches is Mike Boyle, precisely for this reason, because he is willing to change his mind if he finds that there's better information now. And we should all be open to that as coaches, because ultimately, this is not about us and us being right. It's about the people that are in front of us that we are serving. So if we obstinately adhere to a point that is completely wrong, and we know it just because we said it before, we're poor professionals and we are really not serving that person well. But if we're willing to take a step back and be like, you know what? Turns out the swing indeed is not. The snatch is indeed not a swing that ends up overhead. Then, hey, you are a really good coach in my book, that you're willing to step back. And the only way to do that is if you enter the system and you stick around and you see its development. A lot of people tell me that I'm a purist, and they're not wrong. I am. I adhere to a very pure interpretation of the style, but it does evolve over time. That's why I'm here at the party. It's because I want to learn. I want to hear this contradictory opinion so that I can change my mind. And as a young coach that is about to develop, you should as well.
All right. I'm a purist too. Purely love this conversation.
I want to talk about at least one more thing. And that is the idea of being a good strength coach does not make you a kettlebell coach. I've done this a few times, and I'm not going to name names and call people out because
I'll just put them in the description.
It's not going to serve me or them. I've had mixed results. I have reached out to some really, really top people in strength and conditioning, people who have won accolades, who are making a whole lot more money than me, and basically just responded in a comment. Someone made a post about a particular kettlebell lift, and I responded to a question. Actually, one of these times I responded to a question that someone had in the comments, that basically the answer that they were given to the question was incorrect, that this is in fact not valid information. So a strength coach made a post about a skill, and then someone commented and asked a question, and the person who made the post answered the question, and then I commented and said, nope, that's not true. That is in fact false. This is why it's false, and this is where you can find valid information. And the person who made the post reached out to me, and we got a little bit of a dialogue going. And I was like, you've got a long way to go before you can start working with these things. You lack a fundamental understanding of the nature of these things. And I've reached out to some of these people. Sometimes there's a good dialogue, usually crickets. Who are you to talk to me? But the reality is I don't care if you won coach of the year, and I don't care if you're the best at this type of training or that type of training. If you don't have direct kettlebell training for an extensive period of time, in my opinion, you shouldn't teach it. If you don't understand what a kettlebell swing is, if you don't know how to execute it, you shouldn't be teaching it, at least not at high level. So to live by my own principles, I know how to deadlift. I've been deadlifting for a while. You will not see me teaching a high level person how to deadlift because I don't think I'm good enough at it. I'm not a powerlifting coach. I will point to any number of 500 people who are way better at this than I am. Even though I could break it down, I could explain it. It's not my wheelhouse. It's not something that is my bread and butter, and I'm going to stay in my lane. And I really think it's important that just because you're a good strength coach doesn't mean that you understand this particular thing. I see that a lot. I see people kind of like getting over, not staying in their own lane.
It's like that old idea that the more people learn in their own profession, the more they know that they don't know a lot, So
the more you know, the more you don't know.
Right. So like for me, when I started learning Olympic weightlifting, I got a USA weightlifting level 1 certification, and I took 3 in-house courses with SoCal weightlifting. Okay. With Chris Amenta and those boys up there. And it was incredible. It was amazing. That's more education than most people are ever going to get, That's a lot of hours of study deep. And these guys have been in it for a long time, and they were able to pass on to me a lot of information, like, hey, by the way, you're going to come across this little problem. This is how you fix it, right? I don't have to try to figure it out and mess some young kid up, in their development or whatever. And even then, I feel woefully inadequate to go and start coaching that because I just don't have the experience. But that's because I have years of training in martial arts and bodyweight training and kettlebell training and conventional training. So I know how much I don't know. So I'm not going to do it, right? But if you're new to the kettlebell world or the fitness world, and you're getting a lot of praise on Instagram because you have a nice body and you're pretty strong.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, we're talking about you.
Of course.
You might be confused as to the level of your expertise. And this is normal, young buck. It's okay. Yeah. We all go through it. You just have to get yourself to the cert, buy the online course, start that journey, right? Because the longer time goes on, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, and I can even state there are options. You don't have to do the cert. There's people who put on seminars. In fact, our company, Iron Revival, puts on seminars all the time. We're recorded. You can even find it on YouTube, guys that break stuff down. And if you are learning from somebody and they aren't open to a dialogue about what they're teaching, probably shouldn't learn from them. You should probably, if Roger can't answer the question, he'll be honest and be like, I'll get back to you on that. And he'll probably get back to you with a thought out answer. And if he doesn't, it's because he didn't like you. And you're just going to have to live with that. But if you keep badgering him, he'll get to you. Just kidding. He does answer everything. And to much of everything, not everything is what you see on the surface. So if you are searching for a kettlebell instructor, you should be clear. I've gotten plenty of business and facilitated plenty of business just because I have a credential, a second level certification from Strong First. And I don't take that lightly, not because I stopped there. It's because I know I went through the paces of it all, and I know I continue to learn. So when it's not for me, I know well enough to refer that to somebody else. And we just did that with a person amongst our Iron Revival crew that I was like, oh, I could do this, but actually Roger would be better served to do it. And in fact, that is the case. And that happens often, where you gotta know these sort of things, your limitations. And then you can take that and make that choice to the earlier point of continuing the education of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn this now. Let me study this more, and let me ask questions and get better.
Absolutely.
All right. Everybody's a kettlebell coach after listening to this.
Hey, you can also come to my workshops. I have 5 of them lined up from August all the way through December, baby.
Yeah. Just go to. Yeah, where are they going to find that stuff out at us? I mean, my God, we gotta call you, text you. Should I put your number on the screen? What are we doing?
Smoke signals, baby.
Are they all on the Strong First website?
They are indeed. You can find them on Strong First website for sure. You just go in there, Southern California, San Diego. I have one each month because many people may not know, but we now have 2 additional kettlebell workshops. It used to be like the 6 basic foundational movements that you learn in level 1. But there are other curricula that you learn in the level 2 kettlebell certification from Strong First. And the additional 2 workshops are for those movements. So super excited to teach them. They're brand new. I think this will be the first time we do them in Southern California. So it should be really fun.
All right.
Well, if you are in that area, I highly recommend you check those out. And if you're a little we're closer to the Los Angeles area, and we know how to get a hold of Oz, so we could always bring some more stuff up this way as well. But there really is a lot of good, and I think maybe this is another episode. There's a lot of good free information out there, but it is tricky. How do you separate the popular content, the stuff that's polished, from the stuff that is good, because it's not always the same. Some good content is nice and polished, and a lot of the stuff that, it's really well edited and they've got all like the fancy cameras, like, oh, none of this is true.
Well, because sometimes if you're actually coaching, you're doing that more than you're shooting videos. But
yeah, like you have like 5 jobs: production, camera, like fucking
sure.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. I think that's good for this one. Anybody got anything else to add to that?
Thanks,
all right.
guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Oz, for joining us. And as always, download the Bells app from the App Store. Get these guys' books. That's good educational shit right there. All right. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Subscribe and follow, and go out there and learn. Never stop learning. All right. Stay strong, everybody.